Good morning, kids. I hope everybody is staying safe at homes. I'm very much happy to see the response from you for the presentations which I have posted in your CMS. I hope those who have not submitted will submit them before the due dates. Today's topic is climatic change and its role in reducing the disaster risk. This topic has been divided into two parts. The first part we will be discussing now. By the end of this first part, you will be able to define climate change and also list out its characteristics. Besides, you will be able to discuss the impact of varying temperatures across the globe. The contents of this lecture will be the definition of the climatic change and the list of its characteristics, and also the impact of the climatic change on the globe, followed by the conclusions. Moving ahead, as we all know that the temperatures across the globe have been increasing in the recent past. When you were kids, probably in your school, the maximum temperatures around us used to be somewhere around 44 to 45 degrees centigrade some 6 to 7 years ago. Later on, I think when you have reached your intermediate or your BTech first year, we experienced temperatures of nearly 46 to 47, and in the past 1 year or so, we have been experiencing maximum temperatures of around 48 degrees centigrade. The summers are becoming more warmer, the winters are becoming more colder, and we can see these temperature changes not only here but also in various parts of the globe. The same we will be discussing here. As you can see, the climatic changes over the last century has been increasing at a very greater rate. The average temperatures are increasing very fastly, and it has been an observation that in the recent century, the temperatures have increased by 0.6 degrees all over the globe. Beyond that, the biggest problem is with the concentration of greenhouse gases. The release of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere has been on the rise. In the recent past, we have been seeing the decrease of this ozone layer and the continuous accumulation of the greenhouse gases around us. This is worsening the climate on the Earth planet. Keeping this in view, to control this damage to our atmosphere, the United Nations organization has taken many initiatives. Few of them have been mentioned here. The first of its kind with respect to the climatic changes has been taken by the UNO, and it organized a summit for all the countries in Stockholm in 1972, where there was a declaration on the environmental sustainability and also particularly on the sustainable development. And the declaration states that every country should work hard for providing sustainable development. After that, in 1992 in Brazil, there was one more summit by the United Nations Organization, and it was proclaimed that the country's development must be in line or must be done keeping in view the sustainable development and the environmental protection. Latest in 2000, when there was an Earth Summit, it was decided that the CO2 emissions must be decreased or at least to be controlled by the developed countries and also the developing countries. Moving ahead, shown on the screen are the two definitions which are widely accepted. The definitions of climatic change. A mere increase in average temperature is not regarded as a climatic change. Climatic change is the change in the state of climate which was observed over a vast area for a vast duration, for a longer duration. So keeping that in view, there were two important definitions which were widely accepted. One was proposed by UNFCCC, and the other one was by Intergovernmental Panel on Climatic Change, IPCC. You can see these definitions on the screen. They simply say that the climatic change is a change in the state of the climate which can be identified and having its own unique properties and spread over across the globe for a longer duration, for a minimum period of 10 years or so. And this climatic change has certain characteristics which we can observe. The first one being the span across longer periods of time, maybe 10 years or more, and they are not uniform across the globe, but they are global, but they are not uniform across the globe, which means that some people may benefit by these climatic changes and some people may not get benefited by these climatic changes. See, if the temperatures go on increasing, the people who are living in the colder areas, they may feel some warmth getting to them, but you will get burnt with the increase in temperatures. So like that, some people get benefited with that, some people may not like these climatic changes. And the most important thing is, they are basically recessive in nature, which means that they are cumulative and they are incremental and they don't have a particular starting point and ending point. They are spreading over across the globe for longer durations, as had been discussed earlier. And the most important thing is there is no exact information on the full risk which we encounter due to the climatic changes. So these are the characteristics of the climatic risk. First, being their long spanning, being global but not uniform throughout the globe, and being too complex and not having any proper information regarding the risks for us, and basically being uncertain, and finally being aggressive in nature. Moving ahead, regarding the impacts of the climatic change, there are various fields where we experience this worsening conditions of the climate and the impact of this worst conditions of the climate, particularly these varying temperatures. You will see now. The first one being the water. As the temperatures go on increasing, the polar regions, they start to melt, and therefore the availability of water in higher altitudes will be increasing, which means that more water will be available there in the polar regions. But whereas if we consider these mid latitudes or the semi-arid low altitudes or latitudes, due to the increase in temperature, the water level or the water availability will be decreasing. See, two different things. One, at the polar region, the water is increasing. At the equator level, the water is decreasing, which means that the people who are staying here at the equator levels, particularly, they will be experiencing water scarcity. This results in water stress, what we call it as stress due to water. And hundreds of millions of the people, they will be experiencing this water stress. The second one is the coasts, what we call it as the sea coasts or the land coasts, the area which is surrounded by these water bodies, large water bodies. Because of this increase in temperatures in the water bodies and the seas or in the oceans, there is a scientific proof that any increase in the temperature in the water bodies basically results in more number of cyclones and also floods. So when the storms or cyclones or floods, they do come, the first people who are going to be affected is the coastal people. So the first point there, it says that there is an increased damage due to the storms and floods. There is an estimation that if the temperature increases by 5 degrees, 30% of the coastal lands will be vanished, which means that millions of people are experiencing problems with this increase in floods. And regarding the ecosystems, if the temperature goes on increasing like this, then there is an estimate that nearly 30% of the species which are available on the globe, they will be on the verge of extinction. We have already seen the great coral reef of the Australia. It has been experiencing the bleaching and it is on the verge of dying. So if the temperatures go on increasing, the ecosystems, they will get damaged. The balance goes on missing. And see there is an increase, there will be an increase in the shift of the species and the wildlife will be at the risk, which means the vegetation may get a bigger problem and the living organisms which do depend upon this vegetation, they experience a risk. Next, moving ahead with the food, as we have been discussing again, at the low latitudes where we do experience a food scarcity, where we do experience a water scarcity, the food production will be on the decline, which means that we will experience less cereal production. So the availability of food will decrease. So the farmers and the people who are on a small scale, the smallholders, the subsistence farmers and fishermen, they will be experiencing problems. So overall what we can say is nothing but the food production is going to be affected. And pertaining to the health, if the temperature goes on increasing and if the food production goes on decreasing, then it will automatically result in malnutrition, diarrhea, cardiorespiratory problems and other infectious diseases. And if the floods and cyclones and storms keep appearing, then automatically what happens? There will be an increase in the mortality rate. And automatically the health services will be burdened. So these are the different areas which will be directly impacted with the increase in temperatures. So what we have observed is the climate change risks have been increasing over the last century, and the temperature rises are showing very bad impacts over the ecosystems on the globe. In the next presentation, we will discuss the role of climatic change